King, farmers and towns, early states and economies. There were several developments in the different parts of the subcontinent during the long span of 1500 years following the end of Harappan civilization. This was also the period during which Rig Veda was composed by people living along the Indus and its tributaries. If you do not know, we have four Vedas. Rig Veda is the oldest one. We have four Vedas, that is Rig Veda, which is the oldest one. We have Athurva Veda and Yajur Veda and Sam Veda. Okay, so these are the four Vedas that we have, among which Rig Veda is the oldest one. Okay, agricultural settlements emerged in parts of subcontinent, including North India, Deccan Plateau, and parts of Karnataka. Okay, so agricultural settlement emerged in North India, Deccan Plateau, and Karnataka. Deccan Plateau means the area near the Andhra Pradesh and Madhya Pradesh. Okay. Besides, there is evidence of pastoral population in the Deccan and further south. Pastoral population means the people, pastoralist means people, the nomadic people who moves from one place to another. Okay. New modes of disposal of dead, including the making of elaborate stone structures known as megaliths, emerged in central and south India from the first millennium BCE. New modes of disposal, because we have already studied in the previous chapter, must have studied in the Harappan civilization that the bodies were buried with different ornaments, different pottery, faience and all, right? From approximately 6th century BCE, there is evidence that there were other trends as well. Perhaps the most visible was the emergence of early states, empires, and kingdoms. The most visible was the early states, empire, and kingdoms. These are the three topics mainly we are going to study in this chapter, that is, the early states, empires, and kingdom. Underlying these political processes were other changes evident in the ways in which agricultural production was organized. Simultaneously, new towns appeared almost throughout the subcontinent. Historians attempt to these developments by drawing on a range of sources. So, whenever they ask you a question, what were the sources, you're going to write inscription, text, coins, and visual materials. Okay, this is a complex process, right? So we are starting with, this was the introduction portion, right? We just discussed about Rig Veda, we discussed about the emergence of agriculture, we discussed about the disposal of dead bodies, we discussed about the early states, empire and kingdoms. Okay, so this is something which we are going to read in this chapter. So our first topic is Prinsip and Piyadasi. Some of the most momentous development in epigraphy, in Indian epigraphy, took place in 1830s. Remember the year 1830s. Okay, this was James Prinsip, an officer in the Mint of East India Company. Okay, so James Prinsip, who worked in the Mint of East India Company. This is a very good one marker question that can be asked. Deciphered Brahmi and Kharoshthi script. Deciphered Brahmi and Kharoshthi script. Two scripts used in the earliest inscription and coins. Now, I don't know if you people have heard about James Prinsip or not. A ghat has been made with his name in Calcutta, Prinsip Ghat. Okay, just sometime take time and Google it out. Okay, he found that most of these mentioned a king referred to as a Piyadasi. Okay, Piyadasi meaning pleasant to behold, right? So this person James Prinsip deciphered the two script, that is Brahmi script and Kharoshthi script. The Brahmi script, it is a writing system of ancient in India, okay, and was used in South Asia in 3rd century BCE onwards. And if we talk about Kharoshthi, it is a script used in Gandhara to write Gandhari and Prakrit and Sanskrit. Okay, so this is what we talk about Brahmi and Kharoshthi script. Then they say that in the inscriptions, okay, in the inscription, that is in the inscription, there was a mention of a king called as Piyadasi. Piyadasi means pleasant to behold, someone who is good to behold. Okay, there were a few inscriptions which also referred to be king as Ashoka. So this is a very tricky question. Piyadasi is only Ashoka, so don't get confused if they write Piyadasi in place of Ashoka. Okay, So, one of the most famous rulers known in the Buddhist text. We also have seen about Ashoka. You can also Google or can see the movie of Shah Rukh Khan saying of Ashoka. Okay, so Ashoka was a very famous ruler. You must have heard about him. This gave a new direction to investigation into early Indian political history as European and Indian scholars used inscription and text composed in a variety of languages to reconstruct the lineages of major dynasties that had ruled the subcontinent. As a result, the broad contours of the political history were in place by the early decade of the 20th century. Okay. Subsequently, scholars began to shift their focus to the context of political history. Okay, shift the focus to the political history means now history was not only about investigating the things, the potteries, the ornaments. No, now they shifted from to political history, investigating whether there were connection between political changes and economic and social developments. Okay, it was soon realized that while there were links, these were not always as simple or direct. Okay, now the second topic is the earliest states. Okay, the 16 Mahajanapadas, the 6th century BCE, is often regarded as a major turning point in early Indian history. Okay, 6th century BCE. Okay, it is an era associated with early states, cities, the growing use of iron, the development of coinage, etc. This is a very important one marker question that can be asked. Okay, we have already repeated this. I already told you that in this chapter we are going to talk about early states, cities, the growing use of iron, development and coinage. It also witnessed the growth of the diverse system of thought including Buddhism and Jainism. Okay, it also included the different thought means two religions emerged during that period. The two religions were Buddhism and Jainism. The early Buddhist and Jaina text, okay, mention amongst other kings 16 states known as Mahajanapadas. Okay, so 16 states which were called as Mahajanapadas. Although the list vary, some names such as Vajji, Magad, Koshala, Kuru, Panchla, Gandhara and Avanti occur frequently. These are not all the 16 names, but these are the few seven names that has been given to you. Okay, Vajji, Magad, Koshala, Kuru, Panchla, Gandhara and Avanti. They can ask you in a 1 mark question or 2 mark question. Name the 7 or name this a few Mahajanapadas. Name 2 Mahajanapadas. They can ask. Occur frequently. Clearly, these are amongst the most important Mahajanapadas. So all these 7 are among the most important ones. Okay. While most Mahajanapadas were ruled by kings, some known as Ganas or Sanghas. Okay. Now these Mahajanapadas were ruled by kings. Okay, now these kings were known as Ganas or Sanghas. Now here there is a difference between king and there is a difference between king and the ruler. Okay, king and Raja. Okay, so kings were known as Ganas and Sanghas were oligarchies where people have shared number of men. The power is shared between number of men. Okay, so often collectively called Rajas. Okay, often collectively called rajas. So while most Mahajanapadas were ruled by kings, some known as Ganas or Sanghas were oligarchies, means where power is shared by a number of men who are collectively called rajas. Okay, both Mahavira and Buddha, okay, belonged to such Ganas. In some instances, as the case of Vajji Sangha, okay, the rajas probably controlled resources such as land collectively. Okay, so there were many resources among which land has been mentioned. Okay, although their histories are often difficult to reconstruct due to the lack of sources, some of these stays lasted for nearly 1,000 years, means almost 10 centuries. Okay, each Mahajanapada had a capital city which was often fortified, means which was often covered by great walls, fortified. Maintaining these fortified cities as well as providing for incipient armies and bureaucracies required resources. Okay, from approximately 6th century BCE onwards, Brahmanas began composing Sanskrit texts known as Dharma Sutras. This is a very important question. Brahmanas began composing Sanskrit texts known as Dharma Sutras. Okay, these laid down norms for rulers. Okay, not basically for rulers, but also for the many categories as well as for the other social categories. Okay, who were ideally expected to be Kshatriyas. Now you must know that we have four categories in Hinduism, that is Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas and Shudras. Brahman are considered the highest, okay, the highest category, that is Brahmanas. After then Kshatriyas. Okay, Brahmanas were the people who used to give teaching. Okay, so those people are called as Brahmanas. Now people who used to learn the teaching, okay, the kings, okay, kings, the mantris were called as Kshatriyas. And Vaishyas are the people who dealt with money. Okay, so the people who dealt with money were called Vaishyas. And Shudra were the people who used to do the cleaning job, cleaning the road, cleaning the bathrooms, right? So that people were called Shudras. Okay, so Dharma Shudra, okay, laid down norm and procedures and for the rulers as well as for the social categories, okay, who were ideally expected to be Kshatriyas. Rulers were advised to collect taxes, okay, and attribute from cultivators, traders and artisans. Okay, now it's ask a question, were resources also procured from pastoralists and forest? The answer is we do not know. Okay, we do not really know. What we do know is that raids on neighboring states were recognized as a legitimate means of acquiring wealth. Means raids means looting. Okay, looting was legitimate, was legal, was considered legal. Okay, for acquiring wealth. Gradually, some states acquired standing armies and maintained regular bureaucracies. Others continued to depend on militia recruited more often than not from the peasantry. Okay, now there is another topic which is called as first amongst the 16 was Magad. Okay, so Magad, we're going to talk about Magadha, which is also called as Magad, was the most powerful Mahajanapata from 6th and 4th century BCE. Okay, Magad, which is in present day Bihar, became the most powerful Mahajanapada. Okay, modern historians explain this development in a variety of ways. Okay, Magad was a region where, okay, modern historians explain this development in a variety of ways. Magad was a region where agriculture was especially productive. Besides, iron mines, okay, which is in present day Jharkhand, were accessible and provided resources for tools and weapons. So they can be asked what were the features of Magad. You know, the question will be that Magad was agriculturally very productive. It had access to iron mines which helped them producing tools and weapons, right? And another important point that you can add is elephants. Okay, elephants were a part of important component of army. Okay, and they were found in the region in the forest region near Jharkhand. Okay, also the Ganga and its tributaries provided a means of cheap and convenient communication. Okay, so what was the main productive features of Magad? You can say that was his first point will be agricultural productivity. Second was the presence of iron mines which provided good tools and weapons. Third point can be that there was elephants could be found in the forest region of Jharkhand, and the fourth point could be the Ganga and its tributaries provided a cheap means of communication and transport. Right, these are the 4 points that can be asked. Okay. Now, however, early Buddhist and Jaina writers who wrote about Magad attribute its power to policies of individual. Means the Buddhist and Jaina writers give the credit to individual person. Okay, which in ruthlessly ambitious king of whom Bimbisara, Ajasattu, Mahapadma Nanda are best known. So you're gonna mark these 3 kings as important. They can ask you in exam, name the 3 kings which were mentioned. Okay, so Bimbisara, Ajasattu and Mahapadma Nanda are the best known and their ministers who helped them implement their policies. Okay, now initially Rajgah, okay, Rajgah, which is in Rajgir, which is in Bihar in present day, okay, was the capital of Magad. The first capital was Rajgah, which is Rajgir. Then it was shifted to Patliputra, which is in Patna. Okay, so it says that Initially, Rajgarh was the capital of Magad. Interestingly, the old name means Rajgarh, which is pronounced as Rajgir now. Okay, means house of the king. Okay, Rajgarh was a fortified settlement located amongst hill. Later, in 4th century BCE, the capital was shifted to Patliputra. Okay, Patliputra. Okay, present day Patna. Okay, commanding routes of communication along the Ganga. Again, the point was it was along the Ganges. Okay, so first here they asked the features about Magad. So first was the agricultural productivity, iron mines, elephants. Okay, Ganges, the Ganga and its tributaries. Okay, provide a cheap means of communication. Second, that the Buddhist and Jaina writers give the credit to individual ruthlessly ambitious king, among whom best known is are Bimbisara, Ajasattu and Mahapadmananda, and their ministers who helped them implement the policies, right? And initially the Rajgarh, which is present day called as Rajgir, was the capital of Magad. Then it was shifted to Patliputra, which is in present day Patna. And another good point to remember here is Rajgarh, which means house of the king. They can ask you in a MCQ or a one marker that what does Rajgarh means. Okay, I hope you liked the video. If you liked it, please like, share and comment and subscribe.